Welcome to the Ogles channel. Thanks for watching today. And let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy Color game. Today we're focusing on a game called Dragon Warrior 2 for the Game Boy Color. Now this is technically part of the Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 cartridge, but I divided the video into two separate videos, so this is just simply going to be Dragon Warrior Part 2. If you want to see Part 1, I'll put a link to it up above here, but we're only going to focus on the second one, and I have to say, like, this is definitely my least favorite of the three that I've played on the Game Boy Color. The first one, very simple. I enjoyed like the old school RPG aspect. The third one like really went like above and beyond and like really tried to make the most in-depth RPG experience on the Game Boy Color. There's a lot of admirable things about it. And this game here is like the growing pains between the first game and the third game, and it's very much a victim of its time in many aspects. And so we're going to dive into all that and more as we journey through it. But I always like to start the videos up looking at the box art for the game first. And I've already analyzed the box art in the first video, but the box art for Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 is definitely more focused on the second game because it has your 30 main heroes on it. And this game actually is going to have a party system of 30 heroes. It's going to have that mad demon tree in the background. Draki's back, the slime is back, the zombies are back. I don't know if the golem is back in this game or not, but I have no idea where this demon goat off to the right hand side is at in any of the games. And so like if you know where the demon goat is at in Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, please let me know in the comments down below because I have no idea where that fella, where he hails from. Now when you start the game up here, you do have to choose Dragon Warrior 2 from the start screen, and then the title screen for Dragon Warrior 2 pops up. The same theme song is played in the background from Dragon Warrior 1, but when you go to start the game, you get to name your character. There's actually a different character different character naming theme played in the background from the first game. Now on the screen, you do get to name your character. I name him Ogles for continuity's sake from the last game, and then you have a really great opening cinematic scene that basically tells you all the events that have taken place from the close of the first game to the start of this game. And so it talks about how a descendant of Lado, who was me in the last game, defeated Draco Lord, and then once he was defeated, restored peace to the land, took the king's daughter's hand in marriage, and then traveled across the land establishing kingdoms and setting up little kingdoms and villages all throughout for his children and his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren and all of his descendants to rule over the land pretty much as far as he could see. And then the game begins to narrow its focus a little bit and tell the story of one smaller kingdom in particular called the Kingdom of Moonbrook, which is ruled over by a king and his daughter's name is Beth. And they're enjoying a nice relaxing Sunday afternoon, and you know, the breeze is probably rustling through the chambers here. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, an evil ruler named Hargon decides to attack the kingdom. And when he attacks the kingdom, little flames are breaking out everywhere, little demon minions are flying from the sky, attacking the soldiers. I mean, true chaos that's going down here. And at this point, the king does escort his daughter off to a secret underground chamber to try to protect her. And he's going to try to defeat Hargon, or at least stand up against him, and maybe even get out and tell the overarching kingdom, or the sort of the ruling kingdom of all the land, Laurasia here, and warn them of Hargon's invasion. But in the process, the king does get murdered, and his daughter Beth is over there at the side chambers watching her dad get murdered right in front of her eyes. It's a really heartbreaking opening scene here, but amidst all the chaos, there is one soldier who does not get killed. He's able to escape, and he's going to travel the land to try to go to the overruling kingdom of Laurasia and warn them of Hargon's invasion and what has happened to Moonbrook. And when he gets there, he tells the king, and the king is obviously visibly upset about it. He's like, we got to do something. We got to stop this evil from taking over the land. And he looks to his son and says, hey, you're a descendant of the great warrior Lado. And he said, why don't we let you go and fight against Hargon and restore peace to the land, because that blood runs in through your veins. And it's like, that's great and all, but if I'm the king's son, doesn't the same blood run through the king's veins as well? And couldn't he just as easily pick up the sword and go fight against Hargon and his armies? I think the king is passing the buck here a little bit because he doesn't want to go join the armed forces. But regardless, he appoints me to go fight against Hargon, and is the story of my character, Ogles, that starts up here. Now the king doesn't just sort of throw you out there. He does give you some nice parting words as far as like wishing you luck, gives you a nice copper sword to equip and fight in battle with, gives you $50 that you can go spend at the local town to buy new items or new armor, or spend the night at the inn, you know, the usual RPG towns of this era. And he does offer me one very helpful hint and says that there are two descendants of Lado who can also help me along my journey. One lives in the kingdom of Connacht, and the other lives in the kingdom of Moonbrook. And so we don't know a whole lot about Connacht just yet, but we do know that Moonbrook was completely destroyed in the opening scene, so we're anxious to see who is the only surviving person inside of Moonbrook. A little mystery to start the game off here. But we take our time to get ourselves equipped, we get ourselves ready, and we journey outside the castle, and now we're in the overworld for the very first continent in the game. Now this game is much larger than the first game, and a map feature would be really helpful, but they don't actually give you a map until like maybe, I'd say, at least half, maybe 60% done with the game, and you could really use a map well before then. But on this first continent, we are introduced to a golden rule of the game, which is if you stay on a grass path here, the enemies that you're going to get sucked into battle with will be very easy enemies. And if you journey off into like the forest or the hills or any of the other terrain, the enemies are going to get much more difficult. And so like we get sucked into our first battles on the main path, which can be like slimes and slugs. And if you journey off, you're going to get sucked into battles for like drakies, wild mice who look like really fat cats in adorable animation, and like little ants and things like that. Now, when you get into the battle, it's going to play out very similar to the last game, but you're going to notice like all the cool background animations is completely gone from this game. And so in part 1, which is on the same cartridge, it has background animations. In Dragon Warrior Part 2, no background animations. And the only reason I can figure for that is because you're going to be fighting multiple enemies at once at some points. And there may have been too many sprite colors on the screen at one time. And so therefore they just simply chose to get rid of the background and only focus on making the core enemy sprites just a little bit brighter. That's the only thing that I can figure. But I don't know, the games like Harry Potter were doing it, so who knows what their real reason was. I would have liked some background sprites to make it look a little bit nicer, but they have chose to not have that. But outside of the changing the background and obviously adding in way more enemies for this game, the leveling up system is going to be exactly the same. You know, you win a battle, you get experience points, you level up, you win a battle, you get money, you can take the money back to towns, buy better armor, better weapons, things like that. And so it's very traditional as far as like the other Dragon Warriors of this era. But as we're exploring the first continent here, we finally do come across the Canuck Castle. And when we go in here, we are greeted by the townfolk, and they tell us that the king's son, the prince, is a trained mage, basically, and he's very talented, and he wants to help go fight against Hargon. We're like, well, where is he? And they're like, he's actually not here. He went to travel off to the Hero's Spring. And so then we leave the town and we go searching for this Hero's Spring. We find a cave in the ground. We journey through this entire cavern system here. We get to the end of it. We think we see the king's son off to the side, but it turns out that's just simply an old wise mage. And he tells us that the king's son was here, but he just left to journey off to the castle of Laurasia to meet with me to try to organize a plan against Hargon. And so we're like, my gosh. So like he was literally just here. So then we go out of the Hero Spring here. We go back to our original castle of Laurasia. We go and talk to the king, and the king's like, oh yeah, the king's son from Canuck, he was just here. His name is Gary, real nice fella, but you know what? He just left, and he's gone back to his original city. He gave you out. Where were you? And so we're like, oh my gosh. So now we leave this castle, go back to the city of Canuck again. We get there, and they're like, actually, he never came back. Like, we don't know where he's at. And so there's a mystery here of like, well, where did he go to? And so I did end up looking at a map of the overall continent. You don't have access to it in the game yet, but you can find the maps online. And there's one city on this particular continent I have not explored yet. So I journeyed down to the city. It is called Leftwine. And when I'm talking to all the townfolk here, it turns out there's a visitor in the inn. And when you talk to him, that is the king's son, Gary, and he wants to join your team. Now, Gary has a really cool aesthetic. Like my blue armor, it's fine and all, but he has a green armor. It reminds me a little bit of Snake Man from Mega Man. At least that's the image that's coming to my mind anyway. And I think he has the best looking armor in the entire game as far as like characters that we're going to meet or characters that we get to play as. But anyway, when you meet him, he is at level 1, and so you're going to want to basically purchase some weapons and armor from the local shop, and then basically head out into the overworld and really start training him up. I haven't mentioned it yet, but this game is very, very grindy, and every time you get a new character, you're going to have to basically dedicate at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half to grind that character up to get him a little bit more on par with the rest of your team. And even after that, there are still other areas in the game where you're just way under leveled and you're going to have to grind for like an hour or two just simply to be able to advance further in the game. I would say if you want to play the game and you're looking at how much of the game is taken up with grinding, I would say probably 7 hours of the game is just simply straight grind fest. But when you are out there trying to level up Gary, you are going to have him learn some very valuable spells such as the heal spell and the antidote, and that's going to really help you out as far as like not having to carry herbs or actual antidote items anymore. And also you're going to encounter some new enemies out here. You're going to get the King Cobras, who is just a really, pretty good looking snake sprite. You're going to get the sorcerers, who look very much akin to Doctor Doom from the Marvel universe. And you're also going to come across a little cave out here. And if you journey through it, you're going to find a silver key. And the silver key can open up any silver door in the entire game here. And that is a very refreshing change from the first game, where you basically had a certain number of keys and you had to keep a current key count in order to open up doors around the landscape. And so just simply having one key to open up all the silver doors, very nice. But once I do have Gary up to a level that I feel like he can help carry his weight, I look on the overall map and it seems I've explored everything on the first continent. So now I need to journey down to the next one, which is the middle continent, and I'm hoping to find the town of Moonbrook on this particular one. And so I journey through some of the grasslands and whatnot. I find some new enemies. I get the armorpede, a baboon, a green drake, a lizard fly, some, creative enemies here. And the next town I come across is not going to be Moonbrook, but a town called Hamlin. Now, Hamlin is straight out gambling town. And you go in here, people talk about, losing money at the slots and whatnot. And I do have one single slot token. I take it to the casino over here, and the gambling is really simple. It's just a slot machine. And I tried, and they say I got really close. They offer me another token to try again. I try again, I lose. And throughout the game, I probably have maybe 6 or 7 tokens that I find, and I never win the slot machines a single time. And so it's just like gambling in real life. You are most certainly not going to win big in this game. I don't even know what the prizes are if you win. So it may be really worth your time to try to find the slot tokens to try to get items, but I never was able to do it. Now, one thing of note, when you are in Hamlin here, there is a dog. If you talk to the dog like starts following you around the town. You're like, that's weird, because the dog can't join your party, but it's willing to follow you around. And so I didn't know if that was like a cut quest line or something, but I just simply left the town and the dog stayed back in the town. But if you continue on journeying away from Hamlin, you're eventually going to come across the town of Moonbrook. And when you get to Moonbrook, you have to basically travel across a little poison swamp to get in there. And once you get in there, all the fires are still there, all the destruction's still there. Moonbrook is in a horrific shape. But if you talk to the last surviving soldier in Moonbrook, he does tell you that the princess actually survived, but she has been transformed by a curse put on her by Hargon. And we need an item called the Lar Mirror in order to basically transform her back to her original form. And so now our goal is just simply to find the Lar Mirror. Now I look at the overworld map here and I have no clue where the mirror is going to be. I do look it up on a strategy guide and it tells you that it's on a small swamp area in one particular square. If you go up to that square and press the A button, you'll find the mirror. And there's probably some hint of dialogue about that from some town folk that I missed. But man, that is really, really cryptic to just walk up to a random square on the massive overworld map here, press A, and get the mirror. But once you get it, you take it back to the dog inside the town that was following you around. You show the mirror to the dog, and poof, right then and there, the dog turns back into Beth. And Beth, the princess of Moonbrook, decides to join your team. But the sad thing is she is also level 1, so now get ready for another hour and a half of grinding to try to get her up to an appropriate level to carry her weight on the team as well. And obviously I'm not going to talk about all the grinding here because that's a very boring part of the game. It'd be even more boring for me to talk about it. And so you do journey off eventually on this continent here, basically travel the entire coastline, and you're going to come across a tower. If you traverse the tower, you get to the very tip top of it and you're going to get what's called a wind cloak. And the wind cloak is going to allow you to essentially fly or glide with style, as Woody in Toy Story would tell you. And so once you have this, now you can journey all the way to the far left side of this continent and you can climb another tower. And when you get to the top of this tower, it appears like there's nowhere to go because the bridge between the two towers has been taken down. And you simply have to jump off the edge with the wind cloak equipped and you will glide through the air and journey off to the next continent that you have to go to. Now, would I have figured out how to just hop off the tower with the wind cloak equipped and know the gliding would take place on my own? Probably not. The guide was very helpful on this, and I really don't understand how anyone beat this game in general without the guide. And if you did, you were just a true top tier detective of figuring out clues and whatnot. But there is no cutscene. You sort of end up on the other side of the tower. And we know what to do when we come across a new continent. We have to find our first town over here, get ourselves all healed up, get ourselves all equipped again. And our town is going to be the town of Leonport. And Leonport is obviously a port city. But inside the town in the far northwest corner, there's a girl who's being attacked by gremlins. And if you go up there and intervene in this and defeat the gremlins and rescue the girl, The girl says that she's going to take you to her grandfather to tell her grandfather your great deed here, and he's going to open up his boat shop, and he's going to give you his ship in order to sail across the land and explore anywhere you want to go. And the game really does open up massively here, because when you hop on the boat, like it says, you can travel the entire world, any continent, and you are somewhat at a loss of where to go. But thankfully, if you just simply take the boat and journey in a straight line across the ocean here, you're going to go back to the very first map from the first game. And so you get here and you're looking at it and you're like, hey, this does look pretty darn familiar. If you journey off, you're going to get to the castle of Tantagel. Once again, I'm probably saying that wrong. I know I mentioned in the last game. But when you get there, the castle has actually been expanded now. So the castle includes the entire town of Tantagel as well. And I always wondered in the last game, like why those were two separate entities. But they've actually combined them for this one. And they said the king has gone into hiding because he heard about what Hargon's been doing. And everybody's excited to see Lando's Ascendant come back to the town. There are some new enemies outside the town. One called a mud doll, which looks like a giant mannequin puppet. Pretty terrifying looking. Like if you saw this in the wild, this is one you're going to actually want to run away from. Whereas if you saw a slime in the wild, you're probably like, oh, a cute little slime, pat on its head. This one you're going to want to cower in fear and get away from. But if you talk to some of the town folk, they talk about how Draco Lord's castle is still intact and sort of give you a hint that's where you need to go next. So you journey across the little river here, you get to Draco Lord's castle, you go through it, you actually find the world map as you're going through here, which is obviously a huge benefit because we can finally look on the map and sort of see where we're at and where we want to travel to. Some of it I feel like they should have given you earlier, but I do understand giving it to you at this point once you've just gotten the boat and you can truly explore the entire world. So I guess the placement is not like totally lost, but I don't know. It still annoys me you couldn't just start the game off with it. But anyway, you journey through here and you finally come across a little adorable little sprite here. And you would never think this as an enemy. And it looks like a cute little Muppet baby almost. And you walk up to it and you talk to him. And it's actually going to be Draco Lord's great-great-grandson. And he talks about how his great-great-grandfather, wanted to rule the world. And now there's this fella called Hargon who's trying to rule the world. And he's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I don't want him to rule the world. That was my family's job. And he says, I'll tell you the secret of how to defeat Hargon. He said there are actually 5 seals basically hidden around the world. And if you can find all 5 of these seals, you can take them to the spirit guardian or the elemental spirit, and she will give you an item that's going to allow you to basically get into Hargon's castle and defeat Hargon. And so our mission at this point now is to find all of these seals that are hidden across the world. And it does beg the question, how are you supposed to find 5 seals hidden across this massive map here? And the answer is you're supposed to have something called an echoing flute. And as you travel across the land, you get little hints from some of the town folk. You walk into certain areas, and if you play the flute and you hear a noise, then you know that the seal is somewhere close by. And that would take literally an eternity to travel across this entire map, just basically playing the flute everywhere you go, checking random tiles everywhere you go. I can easily see why most people playing this game would just simply give up on it because it is so cryptic unless you are using a guide. I mean, this is like pretty ridiculous. They should have like put on the map like a general area, like an overarching circle, like one seal is over here, one's over here, like or like a glowing thing, just some hint at all. Because otherwise you're just at a complete loss and you have to talk to literally every single town person to try to figure out every single little clue and then remember that clue to try to figure out where these seals are hidden at. And even though I just went on a long rant here of like the impossibility of finding these seals, Draco Lord's great-great-grandson actually does give us a clue for one of them. So I do take back what I said. 4 of the 5 seals are almost impossible to find. One of them is very straightforward because the great-great-grandson says south of the old town of Mercado, there's an island, and if you go down there, you'll end up finding the seal. You get on your boat, you travel down south a little bit, and sure enough, you come across a massive tower. You travel through it, you fight against like skeletons and Medusa heads and gremlins. You get to the very top, and there's like a gremlin ghost who like goes into the wall at one point, and then you find a mage here, and if you just simply follow the mage, he's eventually going to take you to a treasure chest, but then he basically plays a trick on you and divides himself into multiple gremlins, and then the gremlins attack you. Once you kill the gremlins, then you're going to get your first seal, which is going to be the star seal. So we are 1/5 of the way there. But where are the other 4 seals that I need to find? Now, obviously, the game wants you to get your echoing flute out and journey through the entire landscape and spend hundreds of hours exploring every single inch of the map. But I'm not going to do that. I'm obviously going to look at a guide. And if you're going to play this game, that's what I would recommend you do as well. And so I'm going to go through these other 4 seals fairly quickly here. The sun seal is located in the far northwest corner at a shrine. And if you just simply walk up to this random square here by a tree and search, you'll find the sun seal. Like, I'm sure there's a hint from some town folk somewhere, but that's pretty darn cryptic. There's another seal at Austin Fair Castle, which I think this one's actually a pretty good one. When you go in here, the king actually wants to see a gladiator style fight and says he'll reward you if you can win the fight. You fight against this giant purple saber tooth, and if you win, you get the moon seal. So now we are 3/5 of the way there, and so I actually like that one. That one's a good one. And at this point, we have gotten the golden key as well as the jail key. The golden key, I just want to take a second to mention. You literally have to talk to a dog, and the dog takes you over to a square, and you have to know to dig up the square in front of the dog in order to get the golden key. Also ridiculous and cryptic. But once you have the jail key and the golden key, you can go back to Hamlin, and when you're in Hamlin, you can fight against 2 demons or 2 gremlins here, and they're going to reward you with the water seal. So now we have 4 out of 5, and we're down to the final seal in the game, and this stone is called the Life Stone, and holy cow, this is the most ridiculous series of quest lines that are almost unrelated in order to get this one particular stone. Now, you do have to initially find these 2 random rivers on the far western continent, travel up through here, get to a particular town or village. I'm not even sure which one it's called at this point. Actually, I looked it up. It's Tuhn Village. I want to give you the best breakdown I can of the game. I'm not going to just skip out on it because I'm annoyed here. But you basically go into this village, and anytime you exit out of a village, like you go out 1 square past the village, you go back into the overworld. But for this one, if you journey out 1 square and then journey up and into the far left, and if you do the journey just right, you won't exit out of the town. So this is very cryptic because no one would ever just figure this out on their own. And you can find a dam up there, and you can open the dam up to release the water. And when you release the water, that gives you the ability to go to a tower. And when you go to the tower, you can climb up there and you can get that moon shard that we talked about earlier. Then you can go to this random ass island off in the middle of the ocean here, and you can hold the moon shard up, and it's going to take away the rocks out in front of the little island. And so then you can go into the cave, and I will pause to say this is the best looking dungeon design in the entire game. It has like little bubbling lava throughout, sort of like a hazy atmosphere over it as well. A really, really good looking level, and great enemies as well. You have like the evil eye and the evil clown here. But as you're journeying through it, this is just a dizzyingly annoying maze. Every time you think you've got it figured out, the staircases repeat back to the same area that you've already came from, and basically look up a map, look up a guide to figure out exactly the direction that you need to go on, because you're going to get very confused. It's like playing the Lost Woods in Zelda, but you're going to be constantly pulled into randomized battles. You get to the end of it, and there are these 2 evil clowns, and they're going to make you a sacrifice to the Lord of Hargon, but if you defeat them, they're going to give you what's called the evil statue. And if you take the evil statue back to a town on the far southwestern continent called Baron, and use the jail key to go into the shrine here, and you go into a hidden wall inside the shrine, and then walk off a particular spot off the platform after the shrine, then you're going to be in the overworld again, and you journey off to the far left, and then if you hold the evil statue up at just the right spot, a mountain's going to come up and reveal yet another cave, and it's called the Road to Rone. If you journey into that cave and you go off the beaten path, so where you're not even supposed to go, you'll find a treasure chest in the bottom right hand corner, and there is the Life Stone. That is awful game design, like truly awful. Like, how many cryptic clues were there in that one single quest line? Like one stone or one seal here, you had to find a random plot of land beneath a tree. Annoying, but doable. This one, you had to travel all these initial quest lines just finally to get this particular stone. Now, once you have all 5 of the seals, you're going to travel off to the smallest island on the entire map here, and you have to travel down like 4 or 5 different flights of stairs. You get down to the bottom, and you present all of the seals that you've come across. And this is what almost annoys me more than anything. You collect 5 seals, and there's only 4 that are displayed when you're getting ready to try to summon the elemental spirit. Like, I don't know why that annoys me so much. It's just simply the idea of like, you put me through all of this to find 5, and then you couldn't bother to put 1 more sprite on there for the 5th seal. I don't know. That's just infuriating to me. But But once you do summon the elemental spirit, she is going to give you the Rubus Charm, which is going to allow you to see through illusions, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. And we're going to go back to the cave that we found the life seal in. So we're going to go back there, and now we're going to finally journey through what's called the Road to Rone. And very difficult enemies, and if you've not grinded up to this point, get ready for another hour to 2 hour grind at least, just simply to be able to journey through this Road to Rone. And as you're going through here, there's all types of items that are hidden about. Like you can get the Thunder Sword in here, which is a really great sword. Lotto's armor's in here. So really great items if you just simply explore it. But once again, this entire Road to Rone is like a Legend of Zelda, The Lost Woods. So you really don't know which path you're going on. It's like trial and error, and then it repeats. If you choose the wrong path, it repeats over, starts you back at the beginning, and starts you back at the beginning. And like if you don't look up a guide, I don't know how you would ever figure it out. I don't think there's any clues to it. Well, I take it back. There's probably one townsperson who said something, but the majority of people are not going to find that clue or remember the clue when they come to all of these little Lost Woods intersections as you're going through it. But once you finally get out of the Road to Rone, you're now in the massive ice world of Hargon. And this is a beautiful, beautiful landscape. It reminds me of Super Mario Brothers 3 Level 6, the ice world, even like down to like the little bridges and whatnot. A beautiful, beautiful landscape, and I truly do love the level, minus the idea that the enemies are so incredibly hard. Now, you do find a shrine over here, and if you basically rest at the shrine, every time you die, you go back to the shrine here. And so you're basically going to stand outside the shrine, just go left, right, left, right, left, right, and fight 1 or 2 battles, go back, heal up at the shrine, left, right, left, right, left, right, win a few battles, go back to the shrine, and you're going to level up for probably maybe 3 to 4 hours at this point. I mean, this is a lot of leveling up. I saw a guy that said they recommend you being level 30 when you go into here, and I think when I got to this area, I was like level 24. So I had to level up 6 full levels in this area, and it is very difficult, and you'll lose a lot of battles, but you will eventually get enough experience where you can finally travel off all the way over to Hargon's castle. Now, when you get here, it's not going to look like Hargon's castle when you go inside it. It's going to look like you've journeyed back into Laurasia, your original hometown castle. And everybody's happy. Everybody's enjoying Hargon's rule here. You're like, yeah, he's actually a pretty great guy. And you can even approach the king. And the king is like, yeah, just give up on the quest. Don't worry about it. Hargon's a great guy. And the king has like all his little bunnies around him and whatnot. And very questionable for a kid's game here. But anyway, this is all an illusion. If you just simply hold up that Rubus Charm and whatnot, the illusion fades away and you're actually in Hargon's castle. He just simply set this up to try to get you to give up on the quest. And he could just simply basically have you live in a fantasy land, and he could continue ruling his evil plan over the world. But now at this point, you'd have to travel up Hargon's castle, and there are several like mini bosses along the way. You have to fight against a Cyclops. You have to fight against a Bazuzu, a Zarlox. I don't even know if what these words even mean. But you have at this point trained your team up pretty darn well. You have a really good weapon for your main hero. Beth has a really good, powerful like explosion spell. And Gary is sort of a healer in the middle. He's sort of a worthless character, honestly. I would have rather had a stronger Duke or a stronger Prince for his character. But eventually, you're finally going to come across this cute little sprite here. And you would never think it's going to be Hargon, but indeed, it's Hargon. Looks like a cute little gremlin before they've mutated. When you talk to him, he looks like more of a gremlin who actually has mutated, like a gremlin priest. Actually a pretty cool animation. I'll give him that. I do like this animation. He's not really that hard. I simply use my main character to do my main sword attacks, Beth for the explosions, and then keep Earl here. Why do they call him Earl? It's not Earl. Gary here to keep healing us up throughout the battle. And once he's done, he actually said he's not even like the ultimate bad guy. He sacrifices his body to a evil overlord called Sido. I've never heard that word before either. And when he sacrifices his body to Sido, when you try to walk out, flames are going to sort of engulf the area, and you get sucked into a battle with a massive 6-armed dragon, a really cool looking sprite. They've really gone top tier at the end of the game here, giving you the best sprites they can possibly imagine. He is able to spew a lot of flames out at you, but if I just simply go with the same strategy I had before Hargon, he's really not too bad as long as you've leveled up appropriately. I don't feel like you could defeat this boss with anything lower to maybe like level 28. I mean, I had trouble with like level 30 here, but if you went with like level 28, you might be able to do it. But 1T is vanquished. Basically, peace is restored to the world here. Hargon's castle begins to collapse. You get out just in time. The entire land is at peace now. No enemies are going to attack you, just like in Dragon Warrior Part 1. You can go back to the king, who is your father, and the king says, hey, you've done a fantastic job. You deserve to be king more than me, which is absolutely true because he should have went on this journey being a descendant of Lotto instead of me. He's the adult. I'm the kid here. But anyway, he gives me the crown, says, you're the new king, rule over the land. And he also says that the two helpers, Gary and Beth, are supposed to rule with me as sort of like my helpers. But they're not really on the same status as me. They're like the, I guess the side ones, the dukes, as we're going to call them. But anyway, at this point, fireworks begin to go off around the castle. The evil overlord has been vanquished. Peace has been restored to the land. The credits begin to roll, and little cutscenes throughout showing you like the greatest hits of the game. Overall, this game is not my favorite RPG on the system. I've done a lot of RPGs at this point, and this one is ranking pretty darn close to the bottom. And I actually don't hate everything the game has to offer. I like the overarching storyline here. I like how you have to find your 3 descendants to work with you. The idea of finding 5 seals, the idea is fine. I just don't like the execution of it. And the sprites of some of the enemies are truly top tier, especially like toward the end of the game, going against Hargon and Saito. Those are really great sprites, and some of the enemies you go up to before that. There's a lot of charm when it comes to that. However, this game here is a grind fest, but not in a fun way. And I know like some people would say like, is grinding ever fun in the game? Well, I did have fun grinding in Dragon Warrior 1. Like I felt like you go out in the field, you can sort of like zone out a little bit, you sort of fight these battles, you get leveled up. This one here, like there's so much grinding, and then the spots where they're like best to grind in are still like difficult enough where you're still going to die a lot. And so the grinding is sort of keeps setting you back by taking away half your money every time you die. And the grinding just gets very, very annoying in this game. And there is so much of it for the game too. And the battles take way longer than they did in Dragon Warrior 1. So like when you're grinding in Dragon Warrior 1, the battle, you go in the battle, you end the battle, you've got the experience, you move on. This one here, you get sucked into a battle, 45 seconds later to a minute later, you finally get out of the battle. It's really annoying when it comes to that. And then also let's talk about the cryptic nature. Like I can handle some crypticness. I don't mind it. I like retro games. I enjoy that. I mean, it's what I grew up on. This game here, like it is just cryptic to a game-breaking degree. The idea that you would find all of these small little clues, remember little things that the town people said, find these particular areas all on your own. I don't buy it. I don't think hardly anybody back in the day actually went through this entire game without a guide or the internet or a friend telling them where to go. Like it's just so convoluted, and the idea that you're just going to wander the entire world playing the echoing flute trying to find clues, that is truly ridiculous. So between Dragon Warrior 1, 2, and 3, this is definitely the worst of them. I give Dragon Warrior 1, I'd give it a 7.5. This one here, I'm going to probably give it, because I got so annoyed in it, and I do feel like it's a bad design in a lot of ways, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I think that's about the best as I can give it. There are a lot of redeeming factors. Obviously, it leads the way into Dragon Warrior 3, which is a fantastic game. And it's sort of like the growing pains, I guess I would call the Dragon Warrior series. But I just came off not enjoying the game as an overall. And I don't foresee myself ever wanting to go back to this particular one. I will play Dragon Warrior 1 again at some point. I enjoyed it. I'll probably even play Dragon Warrior 3, if I'm being honest, at some point again, because this one here sort of made me realize like how good Dragon Warrior Part 3 was. Because Dragon Warrior 3 took a lot of the ideas here, like finding seals and all that, and expanded on it and made it more clear. This one here, it's just I don't know, 5 out of 10, best I can give it. But what do you all think? Did you enjoy Dragon Warrior Part 2? Let me know in the comments down below. And I'm done with the Dragon Warrior series. I do have Dragon Warrior Monsters Part 1 left, but outside of that, I'm done with the core Dragon Warrior series for the Game Boy. But like I said, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos listed up above, and go out there, find a great game to play. Simply have a great rest of the day.